You there, boy! Are you tired of the same old wizardry? Are you looking for something a little more modern? Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, and welcome to the second installment in our Modern Horizons spoiler extravaganza! It's too hot for the beard, in case you're wondering. Good for a moment, but not for a long period of time. You need to see my smeared, I was gonna say smooth beardless face, but instead I said smeared face. You need to see my greasy, smeared face. Now, before we dive into today's spoilers, I just want to cover an error that I made yesterday. We talked about the card Martyr's Soul yesterday, and it's 1 white, 2 colors for a 3/2 Convoke. When Martyr's Soul enters the battlefield, if you control no tapped lands, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. Now, I interpreted the card as if it said untapped lands, and I said that this card seemed decently powerful. Well, I gotta reverse all that, because that's not how the card works, and in all honesty, it just seems like jank filler to me now. So, just wanted to clear that up. Clear that up. Why even here anymore? I can't even say the words. Are you looking for someone with a modern vocabulary? Well, smar right oop for what are Manubans. Well, there you go. Let's dive into some spoiler cards, shall we, friends? We're gonna start out with Abominable Treefolk. 1 blue, 1 green, 2 colors for a star. If you're really old, it's XX, but whatever, star. It's got trample. This Treefolk's power and toughness are each equal to the number of snow permanents you control. Now, it's a snow creature, so it counts itself. So if you put it out by itself, it's just a 1/1. Well, obviously, if you don't have any other snow permanents. If you have snow lands and stuff, it's going to count all of them up. But either way, it won't come out and just die on its own. Now, when Abominable Treefolk enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So overall, this feels like a wait and see what kind of snow stuff is coming along. It's probably only going to be good enough for drafts, I'm guessing. It doesn't really feel, at 4 mana, it doesn't feel like something that's going to shake up Modern in any real way. I do like the flavor behind it. You've got the artwork where you can see the entire world is snowy. This would be a really hard time for Treefolk to be having fun, right? I mean, they want nice sunny skies. They want the warmth of the sun to bask in so they can grow big and strong. Although admittedly, this guy looks like he's half decently big. And I like the idea, like, instead of the Abominable Snowman or the Bumble, for those of you, do you remember the old school Rudolph Christmas claymation video from like the 50s or whatever? That's what I'm referencing right there. Anyways, you've got the concept, you've got this big, snowy, gloomy kind of, most Treefolk are depicted in sunlight, unless it's on a black card, and then they're showed kind of sickly. This artwork's got a dark, ominous, like, just it comes lurching at you out of the snow. Is that a snow-covered house behind it? Is that the roof of a house in the background? That little peak there? I'm not 100% sure. But either way, I like the flavor of it. The whole fact that when it enters the battlefield, you tap target creature opponent's controls. You tap target creature opponent controls, and that creature doesn't untap until it's it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So that's the very blue part of it. The green is the Treefolk. The blue is the you don't untap. You don't normally see something like a green-blue Treefolk. So this is pretty interesting that way. And we have our answer now. Yesterday, when we saw that the snowlands were included, I was wondering, hey, does this mean we're actually going to see snow as part of the draft format, or were they just putting the lands in to increase supply? Well, we've got our answer. Snow is going to be a part of the Modern Horizons draft environment, but I don't know if it's actually going to be enough to make a real impact outside of it, because this definitely does not feel powerful enough. Let's move on to the next card. What we're dealing with next is a reprint, Diabolic Edict, originally from Tempest, I believe. Yeah, it was Tempest. 1 black, 1 colorless. It's an instant. Target player sacrifices a creature. The flavor text says, always give your foes a choice when they have none. Ob Nixilis. And it's kind of funny. It's like you have a choice, but you have no choice at the same time. And the artwork is pretty ghastly in all honesty. You can see what represents a pawn being snapped in half. and a bunch of candles around, as if this is an arcane ritual being done by some demonic force, and then the energy from that is going out and shredding up a creature of your choice. Now, some people may be asking themselves, wait a minute, this seems really familiar to a card I've seen recently. You're thinking of War of the Spark, and you're thinking of Liliana's Triumph, and your brain's probably going, wait. Liliana's Triumph costs the same, and it does the same thing. It's instant speed. It makes your opponent sacrifice a creature, and you get to make them sacrifice 2 if you have a Liliana. What's the deal here? Well, the wording is the difference here. This says target player sacrifice a creature. You cannot use Liliana's Triumph to force yourself to sacrifice a creature. In this case, you can use this as a way to get one of your own creatures off the board. Now, I'm guessing the majority of the time, you're not going to want to be edicting your own creatures, but it is a difference. And this is honestly a really solid card. I can see why they went ahead and go, well, we can easily bring this one over into Modern. It's not going to unbalance or upset anything when there are a bunch of other cards that do very, very similar things already existing in Modern. So overall, this card has fun flavor. It's not a shabby card at all. Being able to make them sack a creature at instant speed is pretty strong, but not overwhelming. Moving on, we have another reprint. This one to me is underwhelming. 1 blue, 2 colorless. This is Exclude. It's an instant, counter target creature spell, and draw a card. And the flavor text says, I don't have time for you right now. And what's depicted in the artwork is actually a Phyrexian, specifically a Phyrexian Rager. If you take a look at the artwork of Phyrexian Rager from Apocalypse, you can see this is straight up a Phyrexian Rager, not Ravager, Phyrexian Rager that is being unmade. And it's pretty cool, honestly. The actual depiction of the magic countering the creature spell is pretty cool. It's like they're half turning into liquid and magic essence and just kind of dissipating off into the wind. It's got a very like water disappearing into arid air kind of feel. I enjoy this very much, actually, the artwork. But the card itself is very, very underwhelming in terms of power levels for Modern. Again, this doesn't feel like it's strong enough for Modern. This feels like draft garbage. Now, someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, and somehow this actually would be amazing in Modern, but I'm just not seeing it. At 3 mana, this is pretty expensive. You're not getting what you want to be getting. I mean, the card is fun. The art looks great. The concept of Teferi going, I don't have time for you right now, and just, you're gone. That's cool. But overall, the amount of mana spent versus what you get doesn't feel good enough. And obviously, to me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, this puts the final nail in the coffin of, will we be getting Counterspell in this set? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I'm also going to take a sip of water out of my matching mug. It matches my robes. Look at that. Look at that skill. Water. Oh, and it ties into the card. Oh, the mug matches my robe and the water matches the card. I've got such amazing YouTube skills. That's the real magic here. I'm a modern man from modern times. Let's move on to the next card. Another reprint, although this one isn't underwhelming. Fact or Fiction. 1 blue, 3 colors instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. And the flavor text says, every choice is a joy. So basically, this card can give you up to 5 cards theoretically in Insano World, where you put all 5 cards into 1 pile and your opponent chooses the other pile. But more often than not, you're going to find that it's split somewhere between 3 and 2. Unless there's something, I can't really see a scenario where you're going to go 4 and 1. I mean, your opponent really is the one deciding. So if there's really a card that they don't want you to have, then they're going to go, if you really want this card, they're going to put the other 4 here. That tends to not be the way it goes. Most of the time, your opponent ends up splitting it 3 and 2, as opposed to 4 and 1 or any other configuration. So that's usually going to be the setup. And that's actually depicted here in the artwork in a pretty enjoyable fashion. You have Jace here, although for some reason his robes look very gray and muted, giving him almost a dead and lifeless feel, which is a bit odd. But in his hand, you can see there are two flaring lights, and he's dropping 3 that don't have quite the same level of shine. So it's like, those are the dead spells, and these are the live spells. This is the choice that he's made. I will take these spells and ditch these spells. It's a little weird because you've got his face, the inside of his cowl, lit up all blue too. So the art is a bit wonky that way, but as I said, even just yesterday, I like artwork where they depict the number of objects involved specifically in the artwork. You don't always have to do it, but when it's done well, it's enjoyable. And for me, I like this. It's a very easy way to transmit the concept where, look, here's what I'm keeping and here's what I'm losing. And you can see it perfectly transmitted that way. So overall, nice artwork win. In terms of strong enough for modern, it could be. I mean, it's instant speed, so you can use it at the end of your opponent's turn. It will generally get you probably 3 cards, bare minimum 2 cards, but you're going to get the cards that you want most out of the top 5 cards of your deck. You're guaranteed to get at least the 1 card you want the most out of the top 5 of your deck, and that's at instant speed. And considering how much Wizards of the Coast steps on the neck of blue when it comes to deck manipulation and draw cards, this may be good enough for modern, but because I'm somebody who doesn't play modern regularly, I can't really say for sure. But in terms of inclusions, this is way better than something like Exclude, so I'm okay with this reprint being in the set. After that, we've got something brand new, brand Nubian, 1 red, 1 colorless, Fists of Flame. And this one's interesting. It's an instant, draw a card, until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn. So normally, you're going to play this on your turn when you're attacking in most situations. So you'll already have drawn a card. It lets you draw another card. So for 2 mana, you're going to get to give a creature +2/+0. Now, the flavor text here says, Fire has always been my most faithful companion, and that's Jared Carthalion. Now, I don't recognize that name off the top of my head. The artwork looks awesome, actually. You've got this monk, I think it's probably a chick, but I can't really tell 100%, with 2 massive flaming fists with what looks like coils of magma wrapped around the fist up here at the top and along the side and down here at the bottom, both sides. Almost like, kind of like boxers would have wrapped around their hands, made of what looks like molten lava, and then you have flames all coming up off the fist, and on top of that, you've got the red glowing eyes with flame actually coming out of the mouth, and it's all set against a very dark background, like just somewhere in the middle of the night out of nowhere, just, the flames, the fists flame right up, flames coming out of the eyes and the mouth. That's pretty intense. And it's interesting, the card's interesting to me because Red doesn't care that much about card draw, or it didn't before, but we're getting more and more cards that does let Red, dip more into card draw. You've got like things like Faithless Looting that's shown up in more recent times, Light Up the Stage. These cards all let Red draw cards. So normally things that care about card draw feels like a very blue ability, so it's interesting to see it in one of the enemy colors of blue. So I dig this card overall. I like the flavor behind it. I like the artwork behind it. Conceptually, this card to me is a home run. Now, is it strong enough for modern? There's tons of pump spells, but the difference is this one can get massive depending on how much you draw. So, I don't know, but I like it. I know that. Then we've got Flusterstorm. Now, this was spoiled as the buy a box promo, so that's what we're looking at right here is the buy a box version, because there is no other version. How it works with the buy a box is they have created this, and it will exist inside the modern format, but they haven't included it inside of booster packs. So the only way to acquire this is part of the buy a box. Now, because Flusterstorm is a reprint, it does also exist in an older commander deck, and it's a part of the iconic Master set as well. So there are other ways to get these Flusterstorms. It's not something they created specifically for Modern Horizons and then went, oh, it's just the buy box and you can't get it any other way. And that's probably a good thing, because this is going to be one of the cards, in my opinion, that is going to affect Modern the most, at least out of what we've seen so far, but probably mostly overall from the set. And there's multiple things that make me think that, aside from just the sheer power level of the card, the fact that Wizards chose to make this a buy-a-box, they want to have something desirable for the buy-a-box. They want something that's going to be high demand, and I feel like Flusterstorm is going to be high demand. Flusterstorm is something that you can use to hammer down Storm decks, and actually, it can be used for a number of different things, but it's funny that a card with... Actually, I suppose we should cover the card itself before I keep going on like this. So, 1 blue instant, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1, and it's got Storm. When you cast a spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this summon, on its own, it functions very similarly to Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce you would have seen even as recently as Ixalan, 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. Because when you first cast Flusterstorm, if you target 1 spell with it, you're going to have 2 copies of it, because it's going to copy itself for whatever other spell that was cast that you're countering. So you're guaranteed to get to do a Flusterstorm for at least 2. But where Flusterstorm gets crazy is if you're playing against an actual Storm deck, where they're trying to build up to do a whole, play a whole bunch of spells, and then just go, boom, Storm crazy. I'm going to just cast all kinds of copies of these things. Well, Flusterstorm will make just as many copies because it has Storm. So it'll hit all these other things. But also, that makes me think that Storm decks are going to want to have Flusterstorm to counter other people's Flusterstorm. So I expect the demand on this card to be pretty high. Honestly, I like the artwork on this Flusterstorm a lot better than the original artwork. The original artwork has a fairy flying up in the sky. Supposedly, I guess they are disrupting the spell. This Flusterstorm shows gigantic funnels of water just flying up out of the water. And you can see if you look up at the top that each of these funnels of water are catching these meteors. So essentially the idea with this is a storm spell's been cast that's sending all kinds of meteorites, little mini meteors flying along. And the Flusterstorm is sending huge tendrils of water up, and each tendril of water is representing countering one of those spells. I like the way that this is done, honestly. This to me, the artwork seems pretty clear. It's really cool looking. You've got the wizard just kind of floating above a rock in what looks like the middle of an ocean, and he's just whipping up all these tendrils of water. You can see some in the background as well. This is a really cool card, honestly. This looks fantastic, and this is going to be a high demand card. There's a reason that as soon as this was announced in the set, that the prices of pre-existent Flusterstorms doubled. It basically went to twice the price. It might have even gone up more. I wouldn't be surprised to see the price push up even higher. Let's move on to the next card. And this one's exciting because of what it tells us about the set as well. 2 green, 2 colorless for Force of Vigor. It's an instant, and it says, if it's not your turn, you may exile a green card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Destroy up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. And the flavor text says, the vines overgrew the construct, snapping gears and soaking up aether. The artwork looks awesome. You can see all these crazy vines, and they're all prismatic and multicolored, and it's just a big mass of them, and it's just raw primal life force of nature just destroying and rending the unnatural, be it enchantments or artifacts. So that's pretty cool. Now let's cover something that some people may think about this card that's not the case. You can't use this to handle the Karn Mycosynth Lattice combo. You might be looking for answers to deal with that, but you got to remember that Mycosynth Lattice actually makes all the cards colorless, so you won't have a green card to remove. Now, I said this one was exciting because of what it tells us about the set, and it is. It's exciting because it says to me that we're going to get a full cycle of Force of Will-esque cards. If you noticed yesterday, we talked about Force of Negation, and that was the one that said, if it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Well, now we're seeing it for green, and that means we can expect most likely to see one for red, black, and white, yet still to come. And I'm curious to see what kind of effects they're going to be, because they're giving us pretty decent effects for free spells, in all honesty. I like Force of Vigor. Being able to destroy 2 artifacts or enchantments when your opponent thinks you're tapped down, this is going to make it harder for decision making. And I need a little bit more of my matching water. Thank you very much. Ah, delicious. Next up, Munitions Expert. 1 black, 1 red for a 1/1 flash goblin. So he just shows up out of nowhere. Woohoo! I'm a goblin! His ability is, when he enters the battlefield, you may have it deal damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of goblins you control. When dealing with goblins, if it isn't nailed down, it's headed your way. Now, the artwork is insane. You can see all of this stuff flying. This artwork's pretty funny, actually. You can see there's a giant sky shark flying by. You can see cannons being tossed. You can see all kinds of cannonballs and all of these other things. And I like this. I genuinely like this artwork. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's funny, but I do also think, I mean, he looks like a witch, which is hilarious to me. But I do actually think that if you go back to yesterday and take a look at Goblin War Party, and you take a look at the art on Goblin War Party, I feel like the artwork on Goblin War Party actually fits Munition Experts better. Because the guy in the middle of Goblin War Party is like yelling at the other goblins. They all have explosives with them. And so the idea of doing damage equal to the number of goblins, they can just all be throwing all those explosives they have strapped to them. Now, clearly the artwork from Munitions Expert shows how all this damage is being done, but I just feel like that other artwork is a slightly better flavor fit. But I mean, this literally has a sky shark flying in, which is pretty fun. It's pretty cool, even if it does feel like it's off color, right? So the artwork is interesting, but it doesn't fit quite as nicely as Goblin War Party would for me, but still a cool new card to see. And I don't know if that one's strong enough for Modern, but it might be. The red-black part, I don't know how much people are playing red-black goblins versus straight red goblins, but at least it feels like for 2 mana at flash and the ability to do a bunch of damage, it might be good enough. Then we've got Ice Fang Coatl. Now this is 1 blue, 1 green for a 1/1 flash flyer. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and it has Death Touch as long as you control 3 other snow permanents. Now that part's a little confusing to me, in all honesty. I don't really get, like, flavorfully or mechanically why it would have Death Touch based on you having 3 other snow permanents. It's if it has poison, it has poison. If it doesn't have poison, it doesn't have poison. Why does it really need snow permanents to be poisonous? I don't know about that. But if you take a look at the package of what you're getting here, you've got 2 mana, I should say. It comes out at instant speed. It's a flyer. You get to draw cards so it replaces itself. And if you're playing with snow permanents, it has Death Touch. So this thing is basically an instant speed answer to destroy anything through blocking. It's a really nice surprise! Smash to the face, taking away your guy. Poisoned and bit by a flying snake. Bet you didn't see flying snake to the eye coming. Bam! All right. But yeah, the snow part of it is something that makes me go, I don't know. This is another one of those weird green-blue cards. Goes along with the Treefolk. I mean, he counts as a snow creature. I guess they're pushing a heavily green-blue snow concept here. Are they gonna make snow cards for a bunch of different colors, or are we gonna see it focused specifically on green-blue? That would be interesting in a way, but also weird considering they have snowlands for all 5 colors. I still, like I said with the Treefolk, I don't know how to feel about this ice, this whole like snow thing yet, and whether it's powerful enough. But this Ice Fang feels pretty potent. So if they come out with more cards like this, I could see it being viable in draft. In overall Modern, I don't know. This guy seems like he could make it into regular Modern more easily than a Treefolk could, but at the same time, you have to be playing with a bunch of snow cards. Now, the next card we're going to talk about is Morophon the Boundless. This thing is nuts. 7 colorless for a legendary creature shapeshifter. It's 6/6. It's a changeling, so it's every creature type. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. Spells of the chosen type you cast cost 1 of every color less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So it boosts all your creatures of a particular type. It reduces the cost of them all. It seems like it has some really interesting combinations with either Joda, either that new wizard Joda from Dominaria, or Fist of the Suns, where you can make your spells cost the 1 of each color, because then they become free with this guy. And that's pretty insane. And when you take a look at the artwork, it's really interesting. You've got the changeling here. Off on the left side, you can see some bears, and you can also see something with a big, like, kind of stag rack horn coming off of it, and so that's represented on the top of the changeling. But when you look over on the other side, over on the right-hand side of the changeling, you can see a beast with tusks and things of that nature, and it's also reflected. I like the fact that on one side you've got, like, ice, and on the other side you've got, like, regular plainish looking kind of land, and I really like that Morophon is an amalgamation of all these different creature types. Now, this is going to be huge. This is going to be huge for EDH players, honestly. In Commander, Morophon's going to be a big deal. Foil Morophons are going to be big money cards. That's going to happen. This is going to be like multiple copies desired for an EDH player, 100%. Then we've got Seasoned Pyromancer. 2 red and a colorless for a sexy shirt opened boy. Ooh, oil my chest up. Let me season you with some nice oily vinaigrette on that chest, brother. All right, 2 red and a colorless for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token, and 5 mana, exile them from your graveyard, create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. And the artwork is, again, sizzling hot. He's seasoned. He wants you to see, I've been around for a while. I've been working these abs. What you know about abs, son? So you got him here with his flaming hands, proudly pushing his chest forward. Yeah! It doesn't show anywhere in the artwork about the 1/1 red elemental tokens. That part is kind of, it feels like this card might have been slapped together, not specifically to use this artwork. In terms of power level, honestly, this seems like a pretty powerful card. It's 3 mana for a 2/2 that's going to let you change around what you got in your hand. You can pitch some cards. If you have no cards in your hand, you get to draw cards. You don't have to have discarded cards to get to draw cards. So this guy, if you had no cards in your hand, would just be 3 mana, put him out, and draw 2 cards. And if you already have cards, depending on what you discard, you can also get extra creatures out of the mix. So you could end up with 4 powers worth of creatures and no loss in terms of the amount of cards in your hand. That's not too shabby at all. And the fact that it has an ability that activates from the graveyard is also gross. So this guy to me actually seems like something that could make it in Modern. I don't know 100%, but he feels like he's Modern power level to me. And I mean, again, get that chest, son. All right, and the final card we have to talk about is another very solid card, actually. Undead Augur, 2 black, 2/2. Whenever Undead Augur or another zombie you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. To see past the Veil of Death, cross it. The Red Book of Mesdrithalik. That is a funky name. This is a funky card, in all honesty. I really like the concept behind it. The art shows him divining the future by looking into the skull of a slain zombie. You've got this purple dark energy all circling around him, giving him a malevolent feel. He's got an evil and gleeful look while his eyes glow with power, and he's sitting there with these robes that say, like, I'm a necromancer. He's like a necromancer zombie. He's a zombie wizard, in fact. And the fact that he lets you draw cards from your zombies dying and you lose the life, that works very, very well. Black has ways to drain life from your opponents as well. And zombie decks don't have a lot of amazing 2-drops. The 2-drop spot for zombie decks tends to be a little bit weaker. They're doing grand when it comes to 3, and they've got some good stuff at 1. But 2 was always kind of a, what do you got kind of spot. So this is a nice include. Overall, this one feels like it might be Modern good enough, and if not, it's still good enough for playing in zombie decks. So we've reached the end of another day of spoilers. It's time to roll the golden scroll. Now, funnily enough, we had something crazy happen. My mom came to a live stream and she got in a super chat fight with people and she joined the channel membership. So the golden scroll, remember, we're rolling by are all of my patrons and all my channel members. And now at the very bottom of the list, you will see Mike's mom, the newest addition. Welcome, mother. Thank you for birthing me and for supporting my channel. And if my mom's doing it, why aren't you too? And I don't mean my dad, I mean supporting me. So thanks for being here. I will see you guys later. That means I'm history, baby.